this is Cathynan Herbal ABC, and I'm Cathynan. I'm called that because that's what my oldest grandson likes to call me, which is relevant because this series, this ABC that I'm going to be doing, is because I'm putting a book together for a little legacy to my grandchildren. They've all learned a little bit, whether they wanted to or not, about herbs with their nanny, and actually have shown quite a lot of interest, and it's lovely to be able to pass on my little bit of knowledge. And that's what this is also about, is that I have got quite a lot of knowledge put together now, and I don't want it to go nowhere. So yeah, I'm making the book for my grandkids and sticking this out on YouTube, and we'll see what happens to it. Yeah, it's about sharing my love of herbs and my faith in some of the remedies that we'll be talking about. And it's a two-way thing. So please feel free to comment constructive criticism where you think that maybe I've got something wrong, want to talk about it, it's fine. And also any ideas extending our communal knowledge about each herb. And I've chosen this format, quite a simple format, so that I stay on track, because I will veer off all over the place. Quite passionate about my subject, and I can always think of something to say. So what I'm going to do is, it's going to not be, if anything, fast-paced about this whatsoever. The technology, although I'm getting some excellent help elsewhere, my knowledge, I hope, will improve during the series. Yeah, so please don't expect anything too flashy. It's not going to happen. Okay, so the format that I've taken is this. So first, every time I will tell you the herb and its name, and also any Latin names or traditional folk names, whatever that I know of. Especially as some of the folk names tell us 10 times more than the Latin names do. Well, that's not true. I mean, if your knowledge of Latin is there, of course Latin names tell you something, but the folk names tell you something that's really inherent in our history, and it's a lovely way to learn about the herbs, is to learn why they're called what they're called. Then the first thing I'll go into every time after the name is the cautions. So I will say, to start with, if you have anything serious wrong with you, of course consult a professional practitioner. My main philosophy about all these herbs is that if you keep gently looking after yourself every day, then the likelihood of you falling for some of the more serious diseases is lessened. And also, if you do fall, then your recovery time is, I think, quickened, made faster. And the whole process becomes a little bit easier. I've seen my friends drop, and my system is such that I can kind of get anything and it doesn't hit me too hard. I mean, if, you know, I could get berry and die tomorrow, and that would make me sound like a hypocrite. But on a general level, my health is pretty good, especially for my age, and I'm on no pharmaceuticals whatsoever. Okay, I will own up to the odd ibuprofen, and I've had a very rough winter, which I'll tell you more about because it is again relevant because of the herbs that I use to look after myself. And that's what this is all about as well, really, is we can look after ourselves. We don't need to go running to the doctor for everything. We were taught that we should. But now, as most of you realise, these things are letting us down. And also the pharmaceuticals that are used, quite often the side effects are far worse than the original problem. So I've got a million reasons why I respect herbs so much. I'm going to stop now because if I do it too long, the technology doesn't like it. So I'm going to come back in a second. So this is the second part of my general introduction to Cathynan's Herbal ABC. After the cautions, we'll go through the cautions quickly first. So I will go through these cautions at the beginning of every herb that I talk about, primarily just to get it over with, so that we can get on to all the good stuff. And also, if you are in the category of people that this herb wouldn't be particularly good for, you can switch off if you want to. So I'll tell you straight up. I mean, the most sensitive people usually with the herbs are pregnant women, and I will always tell you if it's slightly dangerous for a pregnant women to be using each herb. And apart from that, most of the herbs I use are not dangerous. They will be dangerous to some people just about the same way as almost anything else is. If that's the case, I will tell you. Okay, so then I'll go on to the actions of each herb and their medicinal uses and what they can help prevent and sometimes cure. Quite simple, but it'll take some explaining for each herb. Then we'll go on to preparation, and the preparation that I'm using mainly is the preparations that I use, and because my lifestyle is quite hectic usually, these preparations take no time at all, and they take no great medicinal knowledge. Quite often teas, sometimes an ointment, sometimes a tincture, nothing very complicated. This will change. I've only had my most recent gardens a few years. And as, of course, they grow more mature, I have more herbs to harvest. And so my ambitions on how to use those herbs are going to change. Basically pretty basic preparation. And now the recognition of each herb. So the herbs I'm using are all either easy to grow, easy to find, or very cheap to buy in this country. This was my premise when I first started collating 5 years ago. Started to collate the knowledge I got from the course that I did, which covered everything, Ayurvedic and Chinese, which is all wonderful. And I can certainly chat about that sort of thing. But I wanted this first alphabet anyway to be totally about stuff that you can do yourself and that involve very little money. Mainly because I learned about herbs because I was a single mum of 3 kids, because the doctors was a long way away, because I had become disillusioned completely with the pharmaceutical industry, especially in the face of what the treatments they were trying to give me for my children. And that was when I genned up and started looking at alternatives, as did many, 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 many of us. I certainly wasn't alone. But I've kept at it. And being quite extreme in nature, I wanted to delve into exactly how we could look after ourselves. And I'm kind of spent the rest of my life doing that, really, more or less. So after recognition, which will help you with planting, but also, of course, foraging, we'll go on to how to grow these herbs, most of which I will have some experience of. I've been a gardener quite a lot in my life. And again, most of them are going to be pretty easy to grow because they're largely native plants, because that's my premise in doing this. After that, I go to permaculture. This is a subject that's very dear to my heart, and we will be going into why every plant that we look at is not only good for us, but it's also good for the soil and the environment in general, and the wildlife and the bees and everything. Permaculture is very important to me, and it's going to be an interesting little section of this series, I think. Then I'm going to go into the phytochemicals, and I will stutter and stammer because it's all the science, and I do know this stuff, but it nevertheless trips me up quite a lot. Just so that you know which constituents of each herb is the active constituents that are going to cause an effect. After that, I go to the magic, the folklore of the plants. We have to respect the fact that these plants have been around for a long, long while, and people all over the world have got very similar, actually, stories about each herb. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll go in, at the very end, we'll go in and do a little tarot spread for the influence which each herb. Now, I started learning my herbalism from culpepper, and I would thoroughly recommend anybody who wants to study herbs to look at him. And he was very knowledgeable about the astrology of the herbs, which planet ruled which herb and that sort of thing. So I'll be going into that. And as I say, the tarot. So that's it. So that's what my Cathynan's Herbal ABC's basically going to look like. Hi, good morning. So I've got a few things to show you before we start our G for garlic with Cathynan's Herbal ABC. So I've got my cup of tea, which I'll be drinking throughout, showed you before. Just going to show you my mix. I'm showing you as much as anything to show you it's nothing special and it's nothing that you can't achieve. So I bought chickweed tea just because it was out of season at the time, and because of my legs, chickweed tea was one of the things that I discovered was going to help me. So got that in there. Got evening primrose, bit of an antidepressant as we're going into winter, and also very plentiful in my garden. Beautiful in the garden. There's not actually my garden that I'm talking about isn't where I live, unfortunately, so I can't see it in the evening. I'm usually home by then. But those of you who have evening primrose know. But it's about, and if you don't have your garden, you can ask people for this stuff and they'll give it to you. I would always give, a plant away or some leaves or whatever. So if you know someone with it, go and ask. So it's also got lavender. So where I live, I inherited quite a nice garden, not spectacular, but quite impressive. Bit of fruit and these 5 different types of lavender. So my lavender's lovely, and I've had loads of it. So yeah. Really pleased with my lavender harvest this year, and it's been so little work because someone else grew it. Marigolds I've got all over my garden. Marigolds again, not now. Evening primrose I would always check with your doctor if you're on any kind of antidepressant. Don't be taking evening primrose, and I've said this before. I think when we were talking about borage, evening primrose has got a lot of GLAs, which I think interfere with antidepressants. But marigold hasn't. Marigold is just sunshine in a little flower. So I've got echinacea in there. And again, that's from my garden. You can buy these things. I mean, they're quite expensive. See how pretty the tea is. They're quite expensive, which is why I try. So if you ever see someone selling an echinacea, I'm going to do echinacea later, so I'm not going to tell you all about echinacea now because I'll have nothing to say on the day, or I'll be repeating myself. And the same with chamomile. The next thing I've got in here is again out of my garden, very plentiful, but it's also plentiful all over the place. It's got horsetail in here, which again is one herb I'm going to look at later, but particularly good for me, for my legs, for my Sagittarian thighs. Got rosemary in there, which I've got a bush comes over from next door, which is full of rosemary, so I have that. And I've got sage in there, which comes out of my garden. So I know that you haven't all got gardens, but what I'm saying here is it's worth getting yourself, little lavender plant that's in the reduced section. Save a lavender plant from your local supermarket when they can't be bothered to look after them properly and sell them off cheap, because they always do. If you've got your eyes out, you can always find something like that. I'm just going to show you a few other things. This is my sage. You see what I mean about these? I was saying about the, when I was talking about sprouting the alfalfa, I end up using these trays like this because they are plastic, but I mean the stuff dries really quickly, and then it goes into, I think I showed you my, I've got like a hanging black mesh. I might not have show you another day. If I haven't, I can't remember. Dandelions we're going to look at later. These are nothing special, and I'll give them a bit of an inspection, but it's only for me, it's only for my tea, and I'm not scared of a bit of dirt. It's all come from my organic garden, so there's a few dandelion leaves, and then I've got rosebuds that I've dried, because rosebuds are expensive and I love them, and it's as much a psychological thing as anything, because they make me feel beautiful, because I've been told they make you feel beautiful, so they do. They do. It works, and I don't really care whether that's a placebo effect or what it is. It works for me. I can't hold it so that you can see them clearly. Ah, there. That's probably about the best. That's it. And what's this here? Can't even remember. Oh, I know what that is. That's some tarragon that I've got in my garden. No, that's not tarragon. Oregano, maybe. Yeah, smells like oregano. No, tarragon's got thin little leaves. This is oregano. This is mullein, which, I've given up tobacco. I've actually done it. It's months now since I've smoked. but I smoke various other things. And I weaned myself off tobacco with marshmallow that I was buying from Holland, which has definitely done the job. And even if I stayed addicted to that, it's costing me less than it would for the tobacco. It's costing quite a lot though. But this mullein, which is also one of the herbs I'm going to look at, grows up my garden and grows in cracks in the pavement. It's everywhere where I live. So if you're lucky enough, check out your mullein, and that's what I'm going to be smoking. Hopefully this will wean me off the marshmallow, and then I'll be free of smoking altogether. I mean, I think I'm the sort of person who probably end up smoking an empty biro rather than nothing, because it's all about, it stems back to a dark childhood. It stems back to my mum looking so elegant with a fag that I wanted to copy her. And also about me being naughty and enjoying being naughty, and it's all in there in my psyche. So I find it very hard to give up any kind of smoking. And this, if I can show you, is the, again, here it is, the rose buds, the rose leaves that I've saved. Not very many this year. Other years I've saved thousands. I've got more. I've got about 3 little rose bushes that I can collect off. But yeah, last year wasn't very, just didn't do much. Okay. Which I think I'm entitled. Right. Oh, and the other thing I've got in my tea at the moment is lemon balm, also from my garden. Smells gorgeous. So I can, that's another thing like hibiscus. Hibiscus is amazingly good for you, and so is lemon balm. But they're also my favourites to go to make the tea just taste nice. So it's a bit palatable. So today, today is, this is one of forms of garlic that you can buy. There's many, and we'll talk about them later, but these are the ones that I've got at the moment. You can tell I've been posh shopping. I didn't get them in my local one stop. Oh, and the other thing is the willow. I've also got a couple of willow trees growing, and so I'm drying the leaves off them as well, because they'll go into tea. So I'm really pleased this year, because despite not doing very well last winter, this year I've got masses of herbs to see me through the winter, to keep me strong, to keep me on top of it, and to keep me buoyant and cheerful. So yeah, so now we go into garlic. So to start with, as usual, the cautions: be aware. Started saying be aware instead of beware, and I learnt this off a friend years ago and didn't forget it, but brought it back out again because it's very nice. Be aware that garlic can irritate your skin. If you wanted to use it as an external antibiotic, there's other antibiotics that do the job just as well but wouldn't irritate. 2 of these are golden seal or berberine, but of course neither golden seal or berberine are readily available to most of us. Might remedy that though, because it sounds like a good thing to have. But yeah, they're not as irritating. Going to stop because we're at 11 minutes already, so I'm coming back in a moment. Okay. Yeah, and there's a couple of problems with garlic, but that's all. So some people do say that garlic can cause them stomach problems, but I think this is a lot to do with garlic's ability to cut through a poor diet or a meaty diet. Will cause this reaction. So you have to persevere. You know, if you're taking garlic, especially medicinally, it's to get rid of this stuff out of your body, and to stop things coagulating. So of course, you know, if you've had a heavy diet of meat and rich foods, of course you'll maybe get a bit of a tummy problem if you treat yourself with garlic afterwards. But in that case, if you do think that might be the problem, you should persevere. But please check with your doctor if you're using aspirin to any extent or warfarin, because garlic is such a good anti-clotting agent that it could be quite dangerous, I should say, to mix the two, and especially if you're going for an operation. It'd be wise to stop certainly any medicinal dose of garlic before you go to the operation, because of the danger of the bleeding not stopping. So medicinally, and we're talking about preparation now, garlic can be juiced, and you can take a half to 1 teaspoon daily. I mean, I would mix it up. I've done this before with my children. I'd mix it with a bit of honey, if you take honey, or agave syrup, or date syrup, or maple syrup if you don't. I think a lot of the maple syrup, I'm a bit suspicious of maple syrup at the moment. There's a lot of controversy about how good, how much maple's in the actual maple syrup. So I prefer agave syrup. I'm sure there's problems with that as well. There's problems with almost anything that we're using massively. I'm sure you've heard about the avocado problems, etc. We will have to make choices as to what we think's the best way to go. And date syrup, but of course date syrup's quite strong. So maybe like a mix, and maybe I'm going to start using a mix of date and agave. Just we'll see. But you see how you can do this thing. So you can heat it very gently for about 20 minutes and then store it in the dark. I mean, for colds, if a cold's come along, my second child particularly, Nesta, was very brave about I would just put honey at the time and garlic together, and she'd just have the teaspoon full in the morning. She was very brave about doing it. It didn't really bother her at all. Yeah, so that's what you can do. You can make this syrup and leave it in the dark, and then it's ready for you to use. You can buy capsules to be taken once a day with a meal or more as needed during an infection. And externally, you can make the garlic into a compress by mashing 3 cloves on a mat. So cooking with garlic's actually, I mean, certainly medicinally we'd never heard of it, but even cooking with garlic is a relatively recent thing. It's almost unheard of until the 70s. I didn't grow up with garlic until I think I was about 12, and then you'd get recipes that said you take a clove of garlic and just wipe it around the dish that you're going to cook in. No way did you cook with the actual garlic yourself. I mean, these days I'd chuck it in, and But yeah, so we have come a long way. And garlic's now an integral part of most kitchens, I think. And you can roast a bulb, you can roast the bulb whole, or you can crush the cloves and use them as you needed. I quite like to crush them with in a pestle and mortar with salt, bit of salt to get the friction. But it's important to recognise that garlic loses some of its medicinal properties when it's cooked. So if you're needing it for a specific purpose, of which there are many, you need raw. Okay, so I'm going to come back and tell you about the action benefits of garlic. Okay, so garlic is precious medicinally. It's quite possibly the best natural anti-clotting agent, anticoagulant, that there is, not just in amongst my little, my remit of herbs that are easy and close to hand and easy to grow and all the rest of it. Out of any herbs, it's very precious for its anticoagulant properties. Definitely one of the best antibiotics as well. So it's right up there with echinacea as an antibiotic. It's also antiarrhythmic, so it stops your heart beating out of time. It's antibacterial, antifungal, anti-herpes, anti-carcinogenic, which helps to inhibit the development of cancer. It's antiseptic, it's antispasmodic, which just means it stops spasms, so all sorts of spasms like a tick or stomach cramps, anything. Antispasmodic, that's that action. And antiviral, of course. It's carminative, so it gets rid of gas and stops you farting, or makes you fart when you need to. It's diaphoretic, which helps prevent sweating. It's anti-thrombosis, anti-hyperglycemia, anti-hyperglycemia. It balances the blood sugar. It's also a hypertensor, which means that it lowers blood pressure. It's good for heartburn. It's expectorant, so it helps bring mucus up through the airways. It's anti-helminthic, so it helps expel worms. And anti-helminthics can also be called vermicides or vermifuges. It just means worm killer. It's a worm killer. It's anticoagulant, as we said. It reduces blood platelet clumps and raises HDL levels. Well, HDLs are high density lipoproteins or lipoproteins, also known as good cholesterol. We call that the good cholesterol, which helps get rid of the low density lipoproteins, which are the bad cholesterol. And this is a lot of the reason people go for the keto diet, and exercise and garlic all help lower this bad, raise the good cholesterol, which in turn lowers the bad cholesterol, and especially after eating a fatty meal. Garlic's great for cutting through, as I say, cutting through that kind of diet. It's a vasodilator, which means it dilates the blood vessels, which further helps to lower the cholesterol. So you can see how this is working in your body, cutting through and dilating the blood vessels so that the blood can go through again. It can prevent heartburn as well, because it lowers the blood pressure and lowers the cholesterol, I think. Lowers. Sorry, just my writing. Okay, it's therefore very important in the prevention of heart attacks again. So you should remember that also it balances your blood pressure. So it lowers it if it's too high, but it also raises it if it's too low. So it's one of those little miracle herbs like apples does with your bowels. Apples will prevent diarrhea and constipation, because they're such a good balancer. And garlic's like that with the blood pressure. So such a precious herb. So it prevents arteriosclerosis, and that's the plaque. So it's plaque that hardens and builds up in your arteries, which again leads to cardiovascular vascular problems. Garlic relieves inflammation and pain. It can be dripped into the ear against fungal infection. And to do this, you warm it up. So you just get a teaspoon with the garlic oil, and you can get the garlic oil in capsules. So you put the garlic oil on a teaspoon, heat it up at the spout of a kettle. I did it, just so that it warms it, so that it's not such a shock when you put it into your ear. And then you can put it in the ear and then block the ear with cotton wool just to stop it seeping out again. And this is good even for children, as a way of, it does the same job that the commercial oils do, in that it melts the wax in your ear, and so that can come out. And that's what I would do. I would hold the garlic oil in for a little while and then allow it to naturally come out. Hold your head on that side after a little while, after it's gone in, and then with your child as well, just get them to hold their head on that side, so all the wax will come out with the garlic oil into your cotton wool. So it's non-sedative. It's really helpful in cases of bronchial, respiratory or digestive infections, and can be used with most pharmaceuticals, with the exception, as we said, of warfarin and aspirin, because of this blood thinning property. Garlic helps to prevent tumours. Okay, so the next section is how to recognise, and as we saw, okay, so there's many kinds of garlic. They can be divided into two main groups, and you've got the hard neck and the soft neck, and most of the ones that you buy in the supermarket, the soft neck, in the grocery stores. And the soft neck are very easily braided and stored. They're good to store. But the hard necks are lovely. This is a hard neck. This is what I was showing you. It's a hard neck. It's exactly what they're called. They've got a hard neck, or a scape it's called as well, which grows from the centre of the bulb, which has fewer but larger cloves around it than the soft neck. I mean, soft neck can have thousands, can't they, sometimes, but these are quite big. And these are loved by chefs because the flavour's strong, robust, but subtle and complex. That's a description I read, but I can thoroughly agree with the beauties. So I've got 3 left. I've used one already. One's going to go in the garden for sure. Hardnecks will only store 3 to 6 months, and then they have to be in very good conditions to store them. black garlic that you've seen around quite a lot lately, and I want to have a go at this, is any garlic which has been fermented. There are some, I haven't got a recipe. I should have got a recipe, but I haven't. Maybe if I remember, I'll put one in the comments. There are some benefits. So there's more antioxidants in the black fermented garlic. But they're also more likely to cause an allergic reaction if you are sensitive to garlic. You know, when I said some people find it really difficult, you'd find this even more difficult. So consuming large amounts may also cause bad breath, body odour, nausea, vomiting and gas. So beware, pokey. I haven't tried them yet. I'm very curious to have a go. So impressed by, on my permaculture course, I will mention their names. So it's Cathynan Farm. I'll put a link in the comments. Fab permaculture course I did there with Nim Robbins, and her husband Pete showed us, we spent a whole day learning about fermentation. He didn't actually do garlic, but he did some amazing, honestly, the tomatoes were out of this world. He did like kimchi, and he did all sorts of things. So impressed by this fermenting, but I have to be a little bit cautious because it uses quite a lot of salt. And I have to be careful with, so this whole series is going to be me moaning about my legs, but I do have to be quite cautious because the salt affects my circulation. So I do have to be a little bit, but I have to be cautious, but that's not going to stop me trying this garlic because it sounds amazing. Elephant garlic, which you've also seen around, it's not actually a true garlic, but it's related. It's called Allium ampeloprasum. Oh, and then the name, which I forgot to say, of garlic is Allium sativa, I think. Yeah, so it's like a small onion really, and it's much milder. This is the elephant garlic, milder and sweeter, much larger. Garlic in the garden usually has around 10 to 20 cloves, covered in a papery coat, and they appear between April and June. It has leaves growing from the base and green, white or pinkish flowers grow in dense spherical clusters on the top of the stalk. So you've seen these balls of white flowers, and you can actually get very alliums that are just for decoration these days as well. But I'd rather have the garlic myself. Okay, and the reason I'm saying about differentiating about garlic in the garden is because I've thought the best way to talk about garlic foraging in a new foraging department section is to look for Ramson's, the wild garlic, which is Allium ursinum, and you look for that in shady woods in the spring. It's a medium-sized, bulbous perennial with a strong and unique smell, and I will have included at the beginning of this section, I will have included a photograph of Ramson's. Its leaves are long, pointed and oval. They're not toothed, so the edges are straight. The leaves grow from the base and smell strongly of garlic. Its flowers are small and white with 6 petals on the scape, mentioned earlier. So the same as the hardneck garlic, they have this one scape. They grow in clusters of 25 flowers, one cluster on each flower stalk. Wild garlic produces bulbils, and sometimes black seeds which scatter when the aerial parts of the plant die down. That's the flowers, the stalks and the leaves. When they all die down, then the plant scatters these black seeds. Be aware when the plant has no flowers, it looks a little bit like lily of the valley, and you don't want to be mistaking it. Lily of the valley is a bit toxic. The difference is that Ramson's leaves are basal, so they all come from the base, up from the base of the plant. Lily of the valley has 2 or 3 leaves on each stem. So that's your difference. Even if they haven't got flowers, that's how you tell the difference between Ramson's and Lily of the Valley. The leaves, you'll know once you get used to, they're not the same as Lily of the Valley leaves, but if you're not used to growing them, you could, looking for them rather, you could make the mistake. So Lily of the Valley is poisonous, so be careful. When in flower, it's quite obvious. Lily of the Valley has the dropping, pretty little bell-shaped flowers. And also Ramson's strong garlic aroma, and that's the other thing. Just rub a leaf and you'll soon know if it's Ramson's really strong garlic. And Ramson's grow up to 8 to 10 inches or 25 centimetres. They're not as tall as domestic garlic. Okay. So now we're going to talk about them growing and the permaculture of garlic. So to start with, to grow garlic, it should be sown between October and February and should be hand weeded regularly, as much so that you know that it's the garlic and not a bit of grass, because when they're little they don't look that different. It'll need watering in the spring and early summer, but not when the bulbs have got large. The bulbs are ready to harvest when the leaves turn yellow. Garlic likes a sunny, well-drained spot with plenty of organic matter dug into the soil. Sow garlic so that the tips are 1 inch below the soil and 6 inches apart in rows, 12 inches apart if you're going to sow them like that. You can use the young leaves in salads. And again, if you do wonder whether it's a bit of grass or a bit of garlic, just rub the leaves, you'll soon know. If you sow garlic in the autumn, make sure it's 6 weeks before the frost, which means I might be a bit late. I'm making this obviously quite a bit before you see it. I can't remember what the date is at the moment. I think it's the 21st of October today. So might be a little bit late, but I'll still risk it, I think. I can always maybe put some cardboard on top or something like that, just to double protect it from the frost. I'll have to remember where they are though. Okay, so permaculture, hardneck garlic can be grown as a perennial. This is another reason why I want to get into the hardneck garlic, because it's a really good permaculture plant, because it means less maintenance and harvests all year round, and not having to buy seeds or start it off every year. It's really easy to grow and adaptable and resilient. Has a symbiotic, that's mutually helpful, relationship with other plants, as it can protect them from aphids and slugs who are deterred by the smell. Garlic is also great in the orchard for the same reason. Keeps the pests away because of the smell, and also because it can stop the grass taking over. It's also a natural fertiliser. So as we said, soft-neck garlic is better for storing, but if you've got a perennial hard-neck garlic, so it's going to reproduce through these little bulblets that come after the flowers, and you can take these apart for further planting. So you can help the garlic along by taking these. So after your flowers, you take these little tiny bulbs and then plant them space them nicely, and then you've got loads of these plants that are going to give you loads of garlic. Yeah, and the spring flower spike, the scape, is also delicious but only in the spring, because as we see, it gets really tough, really tough. Okay. We're going on to the phytochemicals for garlic, and because garlic is so precious, it's got so much in it, so this is going to be really long. So if you can't stomach a long session of me stuttering about these scientific properties, please feel free to skip this bit. So the phytochemicals of garlic, it contains volatile oils, vitamins A, B, C and E, iodine, selenium, sulfur, amino acids, trace elements, including germanium, and biotin and quercetin. Okay, so the volatile oils, they're what's used in aromatherapy and also known as essential oils. They can be antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, good for relaxation, stress relief, pain management and skin care. The oils in garlic are particularly good for the skin, for ringworm, athlete's foot, psoriasis and acne. So vitamin A is found in cooked spinach, cooked chard, cooked carrots, cooked turnip greens, baked sweet potato, butternut squash, cooked kale, raw red pepper, mango, cantaloupe, grapefruit, watermelon, papaya, romaine lettuce, and also garlic. And I guess cooked or uncooked, not entirely sure. That's another thing I should look up maybe, or someone tell me. And always chime in. Got comments down below. I'll always have a look. I spend the day that I put these out looking to see what people have said. So yeah, I always know, and I'll always try and answer it to best I can, or I'll look it up, or we can find out between us, I'm sure, about these things. So vitamin A is a fat soluble essential nutrient and organic compound. This includes retinol, retinil, esters, several carotenoids, including beta-carotene. Vitamin A aids embryo development and immunity and healthy vision, especially night blindness and age-related degeneration. So it's that old saying about carrots being good for your sight. Lowers the risk of some cancers, helps protect against acne and aids bone health. Vitamin B, right, we're going to go into the vitamin Bs. I'll probably be a bit quicker about it other days, but I thought this was a good opportunity to especially go into B12 for those of us who've got a plant-based diet. And you'll notice as well, the other thing, that I'm not talking about meats or poultry. I started to, and then I just felt like such a hypocrite. So you can look up yourself. I'm talking about plants. I'm here to talk about herbs. So I'm going to talk about herbal. So whenever you hear me talk about vitamin B1 or B3, I'm talking about the kind of those vitamins that you will find in plants or that are manufactured in the body. So I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk a lot about sugar because I don't like it, and I'm not going to use it. So I'm not going to use sugar in my remedies. I'm not averse at all to making alcohol tinctures. To me, they're perfect. But I'm not going to use sugar. So yeah, so that's that. So we'll go into the vitamin Bs. So generally found in leafy greens, legumes such as lentils, black beans and chickpeas, nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast, and you'll hear people talking about this stuff, and for people who are on a plant-based diet, it is quite precious, because it has B1, B2, B3, B6, B9, and more particularly B12, really important. So B vitamins are water soluble, they're important for cell metabolism and the synthesis of red blood cells. So B1 is thiamine, which helps the breakdown and release of food energy and to maintain a healthy nervous system. And a lot of the B vitamins, if you're feeling anxious or nervous, get some B vitamins into you, because a lot of them are really good for maintaining your healthy nervous system, balancing your nervous system. B2 is riboflavin, helps the skin, the eyes, the nervous system again, and releases energy from food. B3 is niacin, releases energy from food again, maintains a healthy nervous system again, and protects the skin. Pantothenic acid, which is B5. Not entirely sure what B4 is, haven't found B4 yet. But pantothenic acid has been known as B5, and it really releases energy from food. B6 is pyroxidine. Helps use and store energy from protein and carbohydrates in food, and forms hemoglobin in the blood in order to transport oxygen. B7 is very high in garlic, so it's also known as biotin, and it helps make fatty acids in the body. B8 is inositol, not actually a bit of a vitamin but a sugar. Helps build cell membranes, influences insulin and brain chemical messengers. B9 is known as folate, and folic acid, when you hear about folic acid, that's the man-made kind, and I would avoid it like the plague. It's quite often made from coal. B9 keeps red blood cells healthy. Reduces the risk of birth defects, which is why they're so keen to give folic acid to pregnant mums. But I would always go for the natural. I think I was taking black molasses when I was pregnant. I think that does the job. So it reduces the risk of birth defects such as spina bifida and can prevent anemia. B10 is para-aminobenzoic. It's no acid, which is known as PABA, P-A-B-A. And it's an organic compound found in mushrooms, wheat germ, brewer's yeast, rice and spinach. The benefits: anti-aging, digestive, healthy skin, healthy nervous system, growth and development, supports brain function, and hormone and this HDL, the good cholesterol production. Not really a vitamin, but it's known also as B10. So salicylic acid is a form of B9, the folate, which works with B12 to form DNA and RNA. Essential for the formation and growth of tissues and the nervous system again. And when we say the nervous system, we're talking about the brain and the spinal cord, really. So the nervous system of the embryo. So particularly important again, your B vitamins for pregnant women. So B12 is also known as cobalamin, probably mispronounced. And this is the one that you're hearing about all the time, that everybody worries about for vegans. But it also, actually, anybody over the age of 50 is a little bit prone to a deficit of B12. Now, So it's an essential nutrient, and it comes from yeast extracts such as Marmite or Vegemite if you're looking at a plant-based diet, and nutritional yeast flakes, which is known as nooch. I use a lot of nooch. We need 1.5 micrograms of it. Now, a microgram is a millionth of a gram, so that's how little we need, but we still need it. So one of the reasons why you're going to need it as you get older is because of a drop, a decrease in stomach acid. You can get B12 from plant milks, vegan yogurts and desserts, breakfast cereals and margarines. Nowadays, there's a lack of B12 in meat and dairy as well, because of the sanitisation, because actually B12 comes from the earth, because everything's sanitised so much now. Animals don't get it, they haven't got it in them any more than we have. Okay, I'm going to stop and come back. Okay, so as we were saying about vitamin 12, yeah, so there can be a lack in animals and dairy as well. So quite a lot of people should think about supplementing their B12 a little bit. And the nooch does this quite easily. And as I say, it needs so little. And the other thing is, it takes a long while for a lack of B12 to show. So it's always best to take a little bit just in case. So it can be lost in cooking. So for instance, if you heated plant milk in a microwave, it would lose its B12. But if you heat it on a hob or by steaming, it should be fine, because it has to be near boiling point for 5 to 7 minutes to lose the B12. And I suppose with the microwave, because it heats from the middle, you're more likely to lose it. Now, chlorella is known as a supplement, but it is a supplement, but it's a natural one. It's algae. So that's one way of getting your B12. But if you're going to get this, you have to be very careful what you're buying, because the chlorella that has the B12 in it has to be naturally produced. And they're now man-making this chlorella, so it hasn't actually got the stuff that you need in it. Be really cautious about man-made meat and man-made this and man-made that. These people haven't studied, even from my point of view, they haven't studied properly what makes, even on my level of knowledge, to be selling chlorella without the B12 in it is just mad and greedy. Okay. The other thing that contains B12 naturally is nori, known also as red algae, but it's you can get it in anywhere that'll sell the ingredients for sushi. Really, it's the black sushi seaweed that you get. So tofu is a more reliable source, and as is miso, which is soybean fermented and used as a paste. I use a lot of miso as well. So where someone else would use a stock cube, I'll bung a bit of miso in, and then I know I'm getting some B12 as well. And you can. But also, some clever people are making tofu out of all sorts of things, and I don't know. I'll have to look into whether that has this magical ingredient B12 in it or not. But B12 makes red blood cells, so we do need it, and it helps the nervous system again, like all B vitamins. Helps release energy from food, like most of the B vitamins, and encourages the absorption of folate and prevents anemia. So you do need your B12, but you can get it but be very cautious of what you're, what you're spending good money on. Don't be spending loads of money on chlorella because it's not cheap, and then find out that it's the man-made one. So you really have to check and review some of these supplements. Not saying don't take them. Sometimes last winter I took every supplement that I could get hold of because I hadn't. And so often the case when you fall for something like this, you haven't, of course, got your stock of herbal medicine all ready and waiting in the cupboards. That takes years, that takes years to develop. So it's always nice to grow and keep and store as much as you can because these supplements are so expensive. My main motive in growing echinaceas, because exactly that, which I think I probably said in the echinacea program that I did. Right, so vitamin C also in garlic. This is also known as absorbic acid and mainly found in fruit and veg, especially citrus, peppers, strawberries, black currants, broccoli, Brussels sprouts and potatoes. Vitamin E are a group of soluble compounds, 4 tocopherols and 4 tocotrienols, which together are regarded as an essential nutrient. Most vitamin E is to be found in nuts, seeds, vegetable oils, leafy greens and fortified cereals. Vitamin E is antioxidant, so it prevents free radicals and therefore cancer, improves eye health, brightens the skin and defends the cells from damage. Supports the brain function and your heart and your immunity. It's helpful in preventing skin disorders, maintaining cognition and improving lung function. Iodine is a chemical element and an essential mineral found in seaweed, iodized salt and dry pasta. So your seaweed, your nori, will have this iodine in as well. It may be iodine helps in pregnancy and ensuring a good weight in the baby, as well as good brain development and cognitive function. May be helpful against fibrocystic breast disease and thyroid cancer treatment. Its main function is the prevention of goiters and thyroid health. Vegans are more at risk, but still not likely to be deficient. Most people have got enough iodine in them. But yeah, you can find it in seaweed and stuff. So, I would be concerned about B12 way before I was concerned about iodine. Okay, selenium is a chemical element and a trace element, a mineral and a nutrient. Is found in brown rice, oatmeal, sunflower seeds, spinach and baked beans, and is helpful to the metabolism, immunity and the thyroid. Sulfur is found in proteins and in vitamin B1 and vitamin H, which is also known as biotin or vitamin B7. It occurs in garlic, onions, Brussels sprouts, asparagus and kale. Quite smelly is sulfur. It's so the smell, especially that Brussels sprout smell, makes me think of sulfur. It's almost eggy, It's anti-inflammatory. It prevents cellular damage and oxidative stress, which is just an imbalance of free radicals and antioxidants. Sulfur will help balance that back up. It helps the synthesis of antioxidants. It builds and repairs DNA and maintains nitrogen balance. It aids immunity and prevents harmful bacteria. And amino acids are organic molecules. There are over 500, but the most important are the 22 that are regarded as essential. They are found in proteins and are in fact the building blocks of those proteins. Proteins are just long chains of amino acids. We can get amino acids from quinoa, chia seeds and alfalfa, as well as garlic. Amino acids give structure to cells, produce energy and improve skin and hair. They reduce anxiety and depression. They help form organs and muscles. They protect nerve cells and immunity, and they repair tissues and heal wounds. They can regulate your mood, and they produce collagen, which is the main structural protein in skin. So one of the things I noticed actually more when I first became vegetarian rather than when I became vegan. I think I'd sorted it out by the time I became vegan. But when I first became vegetarian, I was thinking, I kind of associated meat with aggression, but I found myself becoming very irritable when I became a vegetarian. Of course, it was because I hadn't sorted this thing with my B vitamins out. And I was still on sugar, which makes you almost bipolar, I think, especially if you're drinking coffee to any extent as well. So another little bit of phytochemicals in a minute. I told you it was going to be long. See you in a moment. So just the last little bit of the phytochemicals of garlic. And it's the trace elements. So trace elements are just, you can just think of them as micronutrients. They're present in food in the tiniest amounts, but nevertheless essential. Like I was talking about the B12, you wouldn't regard vitamin B12 as a trace element really, but tiny amounts. So the germanium is the most important one in garlic, and it's essential for your immunity and disease prevention. And quercetin is a flavonoid and is the major flavonoid in many fruits, veg, leaves, seeds, grains, red onions and kale. Quercetin is an antioxidant. So that's the end of the phytochemicals, and we'll come back to the plant magic of garlic. Okay, just before we start the magic section, I'm just going to show you a couple of books. This one I've used a lot over the years. This is the new Holistic Herbal, and you'd probably get an updated production of it. If I remember, I'll put it in the comments as well. So it's by David Hoffman. And yeah, back in the day, in the 80s maybe, it was a really popular herbal book. 1983 and 1990. It's got the publishing at. Really nice book, really helpful. And the other little book I wanted to show you that said this about garlic. Where are we? Oh yeah, how valuable garlic is for your roses. And helps to repel. Sorry. Okay, so garlic's good for your roses. Trying to get the right page. Single clove of garlic planted beside each rose is guaranteed by the present writers. Absolutely to keep green fly from the plant. the roots will take up from the soil a substance from the garlic inimical to greenfly, and if in early spring a few hatch out from eggs of parents careless of their offspring's welfare, they will neither lay nor survive themselves. Whatever it is that the rose takes up from the garlic does not affect its own scent, and so long as the garlic is not allowed to flower there will be no odour of garlic in the garden. People were terrified of the smell of garlic at one point in England. Try it for 1 year with one group of roses in one bed, protected only by garlic, spraying all the others in the garden as much as you need. Well, I wouldn't say even do the spraying. And you will never waste money or time again. So they're saying, actually, the same as I would say, is don't ever spray your plants with insecticide, apart from the awful things with pesticides, awful things that they do to other wildlife and the earth and everything. You can usually find a quite natural substitute. And this book is lovely. It's I got it from a charity shop years ago, so even before I had it, it was quite a mess. And I'll look for this as well and put it down in the comments. So this was 1977, 1981. This is Maureen and Bridget Boland, and it's Old Wives' Law for Gardeners, Incorporating Gardener's Magic. Very nice book, very popular. Yeah, so now on to the magic. So garlic, plant magic, we're calling it now. I'm going to make these alterations as I go, because if I find a better idea or a different idea, I'm going to try it out. So at the moment we're on plant magic, and garlic is ruled by Mars. This is Mars here, the symbol for Mars. Most people know, I guess. It is said to protect against evil, theft and possession by evil spirits. It is cleansing and aphrodisiac and associated with Hecate. 12 heads of garlic hung over the door will banish jealous people and thieves. You can make a wreath of garlic and add a pouch of mustard seeds and salt to protect your business. For cleansing, you can pound garlic peel and brown sugar in a pestle and water till it's powder, which can then be burned on a charcoal disc like you would incense. You know, if you get, what am I thinking of? Frankincense as a solid. You can buy the little charcoal discs to burn that kind of incense resin on. So you can do the same with garlic peel and brown sugar. Or you can leave a crushed clove under a chair or a bed and then remove it and burn it after 24 hours. And that also will protect you. Garlic can also prevent gossip, ward off the evil eye, and help longevity. And the tarot, so the Herbal Tarot by Michael Tierra, the one that I always show you, and Candice Cantin, associates garlic with the Tower. And this makes a lot of sense to me, as both are ruled by Mars. And all three, so the tarot, the garlic and Mars, all deal with cutting through and cutting out. Mars is like a surgeon's knife, sharp. And we've looked at how garlic can cut through toxins in the gut, mucus and cholesterol. And Mars cuts through, like I said, a surgeon's knife, really, really sharp. And the Tower it cuts through lies and pomposity. So the tower comes when someone has built themselves up too high, and the tower will knock them down. We have shown people knocked off their arrogant positions and being humbled. The tower is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's often unexpected and dramatic. The tower can be a good thing if you see it in the spread, and then after the tower comes the star, for instance, possibly. The tower would just be an unexpected event which turns the tables and makes somebody who was lowly up on top. But of course also vice versa, the people who make themselves big and important get knocked off when the tower appears. It can signify breakthroughs in relationships and awakening to truths. There may be harshness, misery, distress, adversity and crises when the tower appears, but it can lead us more attentive to others, more tolerant, more flexible, more humble and more open to true realisation. Okay, I'm going to come back in a minute and do the tarot for you. So I'm going to have a good old shuffle and then come and talk to you. Okay, so for our tarot, I've got I've used the Herbal tarot that I showed you, which is this card, and you'll see the garlic quite clearly with the tower. You see? So it's major arcana and this unexpected, like lightning, effect of the tower that we associate with garlic. It's cutting through the lies and the pomposity, more arrogant. And I'm going to use the Deep, Dark and Dangerous Oracle by Stacey DeMarco. I hope you can see that there. Again, I'll try and remember to put all this stuff in the comments for you when I send this video out on YouTube. Quite beautiful, the Deep, Dark and Dangerous Oracle. And I'm using that because it was mentioned earlier, the relationship to Hecate, Queen of the Underworld. I've got a bit of glare on there. Sorry, let's just move it across. That's not going to make it much better, but you can see Hecate there, the Queen of the Underworld. And I'll just read you a little bit what the book says about Hecate. And they call her illumination. Seek and you shall find. Sometimes you need to travel through darkness to find the real treasure. Almost anything worth doing takes time. Move off the crossroads. It's time to make a considered decision. Keep your focus on your purpose. A decision also is this cutting out. A decision is the one of two paths. You have to choose between two things. So you have to cut something out. Keep your focus on your purpose. Do not wander off the path. For a long time, the so-called dark goddesses got a bad rap. People thought if a goddess was of the dark or looked a certain way, scary, then they were evil or nasty. And this was the same as the attitude, especially the British attitude to garlic. I'm not sure that the French would ever have been the same, but certainly in Britain, the attitude to garlic was very suspicious. The Christianization of certain mythos twisted many stories as well, in particular those deities, usually female, who were perhaps magic makers, sorceresses, too independent or feisty, who were remade into evil and dangerous spirits. Stories of Circe, I think she's pronounced, Kali, the Morrigan, Morgan Le Fay, and Medusa are examples. I read a wonderful book a long while ago called Mists of Avalon, where they recast Morgan Le Fay as the heroine, you know, the protagonist of the story. It was a really good book. Medusa examples. And so when we look at a complex figure such as Hecate, it's important to understand that paradoxically, a dark deity can actually be an illuminator. When Persephone was taken by Hades into the underworld and Zeus and Demeter negotiated for her return, it was her friend, the goddess Hecate, who lit torches for her friend to guide her home. Persephone, I suppose it's a little bit like garlic in the gut, you know, it's the light in the darkness. Persephone was allowed to return home for half the year, and she was guided through the darkness on her return by Hecate and her torches. From that time, Hecate became Persephone's guide and companion. Propolos, serving or attending on her annual journey to and from the underworld. Okay, so we're going to just clarify these cards, and I will be using the Herbal Tarot deck again, but first of all I'm going to use the Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Krantz. You've seen this before if you've been watching. Find out where to put it. Here we go, Kim Krantz, and trying to get it so you can see it. I have to shift everything around a little bit. The Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Krantz. And all these cards, I've shuffled them well beforehand. So now I'm just shuffling to get clarification of the Tower and Hecate as they relate to garlic. So clarification, please. Oh. And just first of all separate them and put them back together again with my left hand, this little ritual. I'm going to, I think more and more I'm realising as I'm doing this that I'm going to be talking quite a lot about ritual. I've always thought it's quite important. I've always thought it's a shame that we no longer use ritual to, for example, to build a new house or start a business and that sort of thing. It seems to be, you know, mindfulness is talked a lot about these days, but really this idea of ritual is to invoke mindfulness in what you're doing. You know, if you're doing a ritual and you realise during the ritual that you're in the wrong place or it's not the right vibe even, but not the right atmosphere or not the right foundation to your action, you're more likely to find that out if you're doing a simple ritual before carrying on ahead, than if you just blunder along, knocking in the way they knock up houses in 5 minutes flat. They aren't going to last. Everybody knows they're not going to last. Everybody knows everything's going to go wrong. So I'll give the knot. Oh yeah, we've got one come out straight away there, and it's the 8 of Swords. So it looks like you've got this little cocoon sitting there with the 8 of Swords. We'll find out what the book says about it. So swords are always a mental thing, and swords, of course, are about cutting through. Surrounded by obstacles and threats on all sides, you find yourself the victim. You see no way out, no available choices. Your perceptions keep you from opening your wings and taking flight. What keeps you suspended here? Yourself or others? The 8 of Swords demands an answer. You cannot hang here much longer. So maybe cutting down in this respect, you know, that sword could cut this cocoon down. And again, as you know, it's the cocoon that's stopping you becoming, being too comfortable maybe in your cocoon. It's stopping you from becoming the butterfly. So you need cutting down. It needs to be cut out. This detoxing element of garlic. It cuts through all the mucus and the cholesterol. Just give me another little shuffle. Try again. Anything else to clarify? Hecate and the tower and garlic. I don't think so. 2, 3 more. 1, 2. Oh, here comes something. The 8 of Cups. So we've got 2 8s there for garlic. 8's a very karmic number. I'm going to see what the 8 of Cups. If you can see this 8 of Cups. So you've got the dark forest and all these broken cups. So it's not a very cheerful card at the moment, and it's stagnation and ill health. And so so garlic again. Pack your bags and move on. There's no hope of rekindling what's been lost. You must start anew. This card also points to phases of illness and physical stagnation. The message could not be more clear. Nothing good remains for you here. Lift your eyes to the horizon and let your feet lead you forward. So this is it, and where Hecate comes in as well. You know, Hecate is the light that you need to lead you forward. Mars and garlic cut through the stagnant and the old and the cocoon to see you forward on your way. So next week we have one of my favourites. I say that nearly all the time, but it really has helped me out of a muddle. It's H is for horsetail. So see you next week.